There's always a steep price to be paid for freedom, and it's without exception. If you look historically throughout the history of the world, if you look at any society, any culture across the globe, without fail, without exception, anytime you have a disarmed populace, you will have an abusive government. An abusive government will rise up and fill that void where freedom should exist. There's no exceptions to this. North Korea, Australia, the United Kingdom, anywhere, Venezuela, anywhere, Iran. We're going to talk about Iran a little bit. Anywhere you have a disarmed populace and you have a society of people that don't have the ability to defend themselves against the tyrannical overreaches of government, you will have abuses of power without exception. We've seen this in Iran, starting back in 1979, after the Islamic Revolution, after the caliphate, if you will, took power. The clerics and all of their enablers. And here's the thing. None of this stuff exists in a vacuum. None of this stuff just materializes out of nowhere. You have to have people that are willing to do the bidding of the state against the citizens of the state. I don't know if you remember this a couple of years ago. It was in Tehran. They were having a big rally. I think it was, I'm just doing this from memory, about 4 or 5 years ago. And they were speaking out against the regime. A big group of people, a lot of Iranians, young Iranians, protesting. And one woman was just shot dead right in the street. I've seen the video. I've seen the clip. She just shot right through the chest, just killed her instantly. And this is what you contend with when you have a disarmed populace in the face of all authoritarian type government. This is what the Democrats want here in the United States. I don't know if you've paid attention to this much. You probably have. But have you ever noticed that when Democrat politicians pass away, all of their supporters always say, rest in power? Why is that? Not rest in peace, rest in power, because they crave power and control. It's in their DNA. We're going to get into this and maybe into a more spiritual, religious context at some point, because it all ties together. But they always say that, rest in power. Pay attention to words. Words are important. Words have meaning. Close fight issue. Iran, still in the hot fight. That's the close fight. Iran is still in the hot fight. And the United States is ramping up efforts, along with Israel and other allies, to rid Iran of its tyrannical regime. That's what we're doing. Geopolitically, it benefits us in many other ways, but for the people of that country, one of the things it does is it gives them the ability to start fresh with something that they can claim for themselves, because they haven't had the ability to push back against the regime at all, because that regime had a stranglehold on that country. So that's a close fight issue ongoing. Near fight, anti-war sentiment. Oh, it always pops up here in the United States. The anti-war movement, people that aren't really comfortable with this fight for freedom and the desire for people to be free from tyranny. Makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It's a dirty business. It's a grisly, unforgiving business, military, expeditionary warfare. And our military is very good at it because we've been doing it for a long time. And all of the underpinnings, all of the foundational work and all of the foundational support of our military is that which is rooted in liberty. I mean, hell, George Washington crossed the Delaware in the middle of the night on Christmas to kill Brits, to kill the British. That's how serious they were about this fight for freedom, at least in those days, in the colonies, during our revolution, during our divorce from tyranny from the British Empire, the largest tyrannical empire on the planet at that time. So it's in our DNA, right? Yes. So anti-war sentiment, just be prepared for it. What will that look like? It'll look like the usual thing. All the agitation elements, all the left-leaning nut jobs, crazy people will be out just, making a big stink, holding up signs. You see it here in Olympia. They stand on the side of 4th Avenue and the corner there next to Percival Landing and no war for oil, all the bullshit, right? It's just the claptrap. What do they really desire? Well, they desire to be like a lot of these countries that don't have freedom, apparently. They have the freedom to go and do what they do, stand there with signs, speak their mind, protest, right? But they don't put it together. They don't understand that freedom is not free. Freedom is not without cost. Understand that. Deep fight issue, rebuilding a free nation. That'll be a deep fight issue for the Iranians, rebuilding. And deciding how they want to govern. Do they want to do self-governance like we do here in the United States? Representative governance? Constitutional governance? Well, we shall see. We're going to try to give them the opportunity to do that. In the meantime, it's going to be bad. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be bloody. Again, freedom is not free. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't come at no cost at all. So be prepared for a long haul in this. I mean, politically, our president wants to kind of downplay, that these things do take time. Because we're the instant gratification society. Let's be honest. We would just want things right now. We want things to be just over and done immediately. But that's not the way the world works. These things take time. And there are going to be more casualties on our part. There are going to be more United States casualties. I don't doubt that. And there is the potential for boots on the ground. Oh my God, I said it. Boots on the ground. I know it's the big, scary buzzword. But the reality is when you wipe out infrastructure and when you take out command and control and you destroy a country's ability to wage war, you still have to get boots on the ground in order to hold ground, hold land, and then have some kind of a transitional phase. Where have we seen this? If you've been alive long enough, you've seen it in Iraq, Afghanistan. Afghanistan's a debatable point. We could talk about that maybe down the road at some point. So, yes, this stuff is going to take a little bit of time. A disarmed populace, always abusive. That's my first point. Kind of talked about it right here at the top of the video. You can just always bet on the fact that when you have a populace that has been stripped of its ability to defend itself from its government, you will have abuses of power, without exception. This is not a debatable point. It's just fact. It's the law of the land. Communist Democrats, always on the wrong side of freedom, seems to be. They always seem to be speaking out against these movements of freedom, specifically in Iran. They do it because they want to discredit this president. They don't like Donald Trump, so they want to discredit him, and they want to say that he's doing a poor job or that he acted rashly and, all of these things. They want to ascribe all of these characterizations to him in order to undermine our efforts in Iran, which are going to be successful, and they have been successful thus far. If you've been watching any of it. Had a good conversation today. There's a side point, a little anecdote with the guy at the gym, a guy about my age. And we got talking, found out he was a veteran, Desert Storm era guy. And we got yakking about a bunch of stuff, and his kids are currently serving in the armed forces. And I asked, what the sentiment is there. And he said the morale is extremely high, as it should be, as you imagine it might be under this administration. Because we have a Department of War that it lends its full support to the troops. And the troops see that. Again, like yesterday's video, what I talked about, that setting the tone, that positive example, that warrior ethos and that warrior mindset, it does a lot for our military. So, yes, Communist Democrats, always going to be on the wrong side of history and freedom. I mean, gosh, Hanoi Jane Fonda, of all people, she's still trying to be relevant. She's always on the wrong side of history. She spoke out against the United States during the Vietnam War, went to Hanoi, hence her nickname. And increased the morale for the North Vietnamese at that time and helped destroy the morale of the United States and helped destroy, in many respects, the war efforts of the United States at that time. Highly politicized war against communism. The war against communism in Vietnam, specifically North Vietnam, coming down into the South, which they eventually did. So we're always in the fight. We're always in the fight. Be it abroad, across the globe, or here within our borders. The fight is ongoing. this fight for freedom. You always have to be vigilant in this fight for freedom against tyranny at all times. It's not always the hot fight, but we're always shaping the battle space in our favor in an effort to promote and advance the principles of liberty. Right? Freedom's high cost. Again, we're going to see that. We're going to see freedom's high cost. And you're just going to have to get comfortable with it. We've been at war as a nation, well, since our founding, really, to be honest. Because of the nature of our country, we're always going to be in defense of liberty. That's just a reality. And that's the high cost of being a free nation, is you always have to defend it. And you always have to speak up and advance the principles of liberty at all times.